China abandoned by the world. Empty international airports across the country. Foreign visitors stop coming. International flights canceled. The CCP's wolf warrior diplomacy has resulted in international isolation, leaving Chinese citizens feeling humiliated as they face repeated visa rejections. Unable to enter the US market, Chinese goods are now flooding and invading Europe, with 145 packages arriving every second. The EU has issued an urgent call to stop the influx. Trump's unpredictable moves have deeply divided the CCP's internal factions. Beijing's anti-Xi forces have begun to act, and Xi Jinping's coup attempt has failed. Netflix CEO exposes the dark side of CCP censorship. Speech suppression accelerates the regime's downfall. Thanks for joining us at New Century, where honest reporting and thoughtful insight come together. China abandoned by the world. Empty international airports across the country. Foreign visitors stop coming. International flights canceled. China's once thriving international airports now stand eerily empty. As the US-China trade war escalates and global confidence in China fades, the question arises, is the nation being left behind by the world? Let's take a closer look at the situation through videos captured by Chinese bloggers. On April 27th, a video captured Shanghai Hongqiao Airport, once one of China's busiest hubs, now desolate with just a handful of passengers wandering its halls. It's hard to believe this was a bustling terminal not long ago. Another video showed Shanghai Pudong Airport, its terminal hauntingly quiet and nearly all duty-free shops shuttered. Social media users were stunned, asking, "Where has everyone gone?" As the May Day travel rush neared, Chinese netizens noticed a troubling trend. Major international airports across the country were unusually deserted. A blogger's footage from Beijing Capital Airport revealed near-empty duty-free shops in the departure area, with only store employees present, a far cry from the vibrant scenes of the past. Vloggers who've seen this firsthand shared their shock. Just 4 or 5 years ago, China's major airports, especially international ones, were packed during holidays, peak seasons, and even weekdays. Seats were so scarce that travelers stood or sat on the floor. But in recent years, those lively scenes have vanished, leaving terminals mostly empty with plenty of seats to spare. China's economy has been on a steady decline, with clear signs of widespread consumer belt-tightening. The US-China trade war has made people more frugal, slashing spending on travel and transportation. Wang Chanxun, chairman of the China Civil Aviation Association, pointed to fierce domestic competition from high-speed rail and international challenges tied to geopolitical tensions. While he didn't name these tensions, many link them to China's aggressive wolf warrior diplomacy, which has strained global ties. The financial toll is undeniable. China's 3 major state-owned airlines, Air China, China Southern Airlines, and China Eastern Airlines, reported losses for the 5th straight year in their 2025 financial results. Air China posted a net loss of 230 million yuan, roughly $31.6 million in 2024. China Southern, the nation's largest carrier, reported a 1.77 billion yuan loss. Shanghai-based China Eastern faced a 4.2 billion yuan deficit. These numbers paint a grim picture for the industry. Recent trends underscore the crisis. A 200 yuan flight price cap and 10% discounts on high-speed rail tickets have driven airfares down from their historic highs. Data from Forward Keys shows international airfares from China in 2024 fell 32% compared to 2023, while Asia-wide international ticket prices dropped by 12%. The aviation sector faces another hurdle: grounded flight trainees. A Chinese media report revealed that 89 trainees at China Eastern were sidelined due to new 2024 assessment rules. These rules require flight students from the 2018 to 2021 cohorts to pass International Civil Aviation English and licensing theory exams within 6 months, or risk having their training agreements terminated. An aviation expert explained that a sharp drop in flight demand during the pandemic created an oversupply of pilots, and this backlog is now glaringly apparent. China Eastern has also grappled with high-profile setbacks. The tragic crash of Flight MU-5735, which plummeted in a mountainous area of Guangxi 64 minutes after departing Kunming, remains shrouded in mystery, with some speculating human error as a cause. The airline faced public outrage last year over a mass seat-locking issue and an incident where 4 VIP passengers were left stranded at the airport. The desolation of China's airports is worsened by foreign airlines pulling out. In July 2024, the UK's Virgin Atlantic announced it's indefinitely cancelling its London to Shanghai route starting at the end of October, citing extended flight times. Royal Brunei Airlines declared that from October, it would suspend its twice-weekly Beijing flights due to market conditions. 3 major Philippine airlines have cut direct flights to China, now only serving Shanghai and Xiamen. In May, Australia's Qantas announced it's suspending Shanghai flights starting July 28th, blaming low demand. By November 2024, after Donald Trump's re-election as U.S. president, flights between the U.S. and China were still below 30% of 2019 levels, with the U.S.-China trade war further slashing business traveler flows. U.S. economist David J. Huang sees these withdrawals as strategic, reflecting a lack of confidence in China's medium and long-term market prospects. He noted that China's once vibrant economy and massive consumer base drove fierce competition for airline routes, but those routes are now being abandoned, signaling declines in investment and tourism. This also points to growing pressure on China's domestic economy, waning influence in global trade, and a shrinking presence in international discourse. Professor Song Guoxiang from Taiwan's Nanhua University added that China's global appeal has faded significantly since the pandemic, with many countries speeding up their decoupling from China, as evidenced by these flight suspensions. In a bid to reverse the trend, China's government, clearly rattled, has rolled out visa exemptions. From November 30th, 2024, to December 31st, 2025, citizens of 9 countries, including Bulgaria, Romania, and Japan, will enjoy visa-free entry. The stay limit for 38 visa-exempt countries has also been extended from 15 to 30 days to boost tourism. But Professor Hong Yaonan from Taiwan's Tamkang University warns that these measures may not be enough. He emphasized that foreign tourists are deeply concerned about China's political environment and personal safety, particularly due to the national security law and anti-espionage law. These laws have heightened fears, making China a less appealing destination despite relaxed policies. As China's airports grow quieter and its global ties fray, the nation faces a daunting question. Can it regain the world's trust, or is it destined for deeper isolation? The CCP's wolf warrior diplomacy has resulted in international isolation, leaving Chinese citizens feeling humiliated as they face repeated visa rejections. Let's explore this humorous story. In recent years, online buzz has spotlighted the so-called value of the Chinese passport, fueled by dramatic scenes like one from the Chinese war film Homecoming. In it, a diplomat in the fictional Republic of Numia boldly holds up his Chinese passport while passing through a rebel-controlled zone. Surrounded by armed soldiers, he steps out of his car, and the rebels, awestruck by the passport, back off in fear. This scene echoes claims by Wu Jing, the director and star of the Wolf Warrior series, who boasted that a Chinese face and a Chinese passport can safely navigate even the world's most dangerous regions, showcasing China's global dominance. But does the Chinese passport really carry that kind of weight? The reality is far less cinematic. One traveler, misled by government claims of visa-free access to 150 countries, learned the hard way while cycling from Thailand to Malaysia. He shared his ordeal. I brought my passport to the exit hall and saw a Chinese passport courtesy lane. I thought it was smooth sailing, but when I tried to get a visa on arrival in Malaysia, they said it wasn't allowed. I was denied entry. Worse, I couldn't return to Thailand because my Thai visa had expired. His frustration underscores a harsh truth. Social media is rife with similar stories. Netizens have posted videos venting about the scrutiny Chinese citizens face at border checkpoints. One man lamented, "Foreigners use one window, but Chinese citizens get a separate one. We're asked for return tickets, hotel bookings, or proof of funds, like we're not trusted. Foreigners are presumed credible, but not us." After a long interrogation, I got through, but only because I had piles of documents. That's the difference. Others are respected. We're treated as less. A Taiwanese man shared a telling experience at customs. Mistaken for a Chinese national, he faced delays, but once he presented his Taiwanese passport, he was waved through. This contrast highlights a bitter reality. Far from earning respect as state media claims, Chinese passports often invite suspicion and extra hurdles. These stories expose the Chinese passport's diminished value. In 2024, it grants visa-free access to just 27 countries, mostly lesser-known destinations like Paraguay, Tonga, and Haiti. Major global hubs remain out of reach, confining many Chinese citizens within their borders. Dreams of emigration are often dashed, with visa rejection rates for Europe and North America remaining sky-high. Canada's Arton Capital International Advisory Firm's 2024 Global Passport Power Rankings tell a grim story. The rankings, based on visa-free or visa-on-arrival access, crowned the United Arab Emirates as the world's most powerful passport for the fourth year running. China's powerful passport? It limped in at 110th place. Why does the Chinese passport fare so poorly? Many point to China's tarnished global reputation. As one netizen put it bluntly, "It's like a petty thief or ex-convict asking to visit your home. Would you let them in?" This perception is tied to Beijing's wolf warrior diplomacy, a sharp departure from traditional tact. Gone are phrases like mutual respect and win-win cooperation, replaced by confrontational rhetoric that's alienated much of the world. A notable example unfolded on June 2nd, 2024, at the Shangri-La Dialogue in Singapore. Chinese Defense Minister Dong Jun went off script during his speech, launching an aggressive critique of Taiwan and neighboring countries. His tirade against Taiwan was interrupted twice within 10 minutes by moderators urging him to stick to the agenda. Analysts noted that Beijing's combative stance, attacking Taiwan, asserting dominance over the South China Sea, and blaming the U.S., clashed with the forum's theme and alienated attendees, further cementing China's image as a regional bully. Recently, as the U.S.-China trade war escalated, the belligerent attitude of the Chinese Communist Party's wolf warrior diplomats and calls for boycotts of the United States have further tarnished China's image. This behavior has consequences. A survey across 17 economies found 69% of respondents hold negative views of China. Japan led with 88%, followed by Sweden at 80%, Australia at 78%, South Korea at 77%, and the US at 76%. Taiwan matched the average at 69%. Confidence in Xi Jinping's global leadership was equally low, with Sweden and Japan showing the deepest skepticism. Interestingly, despite traditionally viewing Western nations as threats, Beijing has offered unilateral visa-free entry to passport holders from 38 countries for business, tourism, or transit stays of up to 30 days, starting in December 2024. Analysts believe this strategy aims to boost tourism and consumption to revitalize China's struggling economy. However, some observers remain skeptical, suggesting this is more of a tactical adjustment than a strategic shift. While Chinese diplomats may soften their rhetoric to tell China's story more effectively, they are unlikely to abandon their confrontational approach entirely. "A wolf dressed up as friendly is still a wolf," one netizen remarked. Dr. Feng Chongyi, a professor at the University of Technology, Sydney, told U.S. media that many of China's policies are inherently contradictory. On one hand, the economy is declining, foreign investments are withdrawing, and tourist numbers are plummeting, leaving them anxious. At the same time, they enforce national security laws and anti-espionage regulations, arbitrarily detaining individuals. The latest policies even require foreign arrivals to have their phones inspected, creating an atmosphere of fear. Even with a visa-free policy, few would dare visit. Unable to enter the U.S. market, Chinese goods are now flooding and invading Europe, with 145 packages arriving every second. The EU has issued an urgent call to stop the influx. The U.S. has slapped tariffs as high as 145% on Chinese imports, a move impacting roughly 20 million jobs in China. With their largest market shrinking, Chinese exporters are racing to find new buyers, and their e-commerce platforms are flooding global markets with tariff-exempt small packages. Nations worldwide are on high alert, bracing for an onslaught of competitively priced Chinese goods. The U.S. is China's top export destination, with about $500 billion in goods shipped last year, making up 15% of China's total exports. But with U.S. orders now plummeting, analysts say 10 markets, including the EU, UK, Vietnam, and Taiwan, are likely to absorb these redirected goods, potentially boosting China's exports to these regions by 6% each year. President Trump signed an executive order raising tariffs on small Chinese packages valued at $800 or less from 30% to 90%. In response to China's 34% tariffs on U.S. goods, with Hong Kong also affected. Starting May 2nd, the tariff will increase to 120%, creating challenges for Chinese e-commerce platforms like Shein and Temu. Other countries are now considering similar steps to address the influx of Chinese packages. In Europe, the situation is dire. An EU report shows 4.6 billion small packages entered the region last year. 91% from China, all tariff-exempt. That's over 145 packages per second. France is feeling the strain, swamped by low-cost packages from Chinese e-commerce platforms. French Finance Minister Eric Lombard warned that beyond cutthroat competition, some of these goods fail to meet European safety standards, and their production conditions clash with French values. On April 25th, France's finance ministry announced specific measures set for April 29th to tackle this deluge of cheap Chinese e-commerce packages, aiming to curb the trend and protect European markets. Lombard called out millions of packages from platforms like Shein, Temu, and Alibaba, accusing them of not only undercutting French businesses, but also creating an ecological mess with substandard products. The numbers are staggering. The volume of Chinese packages doubled from 2023 and quadrupled from 2022, prompting French media to label it an invasion. Lombard stressed that the April 29th measures will raise consumer awareness, respond to the flood of goods, and safeguard consumer safety, addressing the unfair competition local businesses face. When asked about scrapping the tariff exemption for packages under €150, the finance ministry told AFP on April 25th that it's under consideration for legal feasibility, though not the primary focus. Instead, the ministry is prioritizing platform regulation issues, noting that the U.S.-China trade war could redirect Chinese logistics to Europe, especially France. Consulting firm AlixPartners told Le Figaro that within days, nearly half of U.S. companies' orders for daily goods from Chinese suppliers were canceled. Chinese suppliers, desperate for short-term profits and cash flow, are now offloading inventory on various online platforms. European stakeholders are sounding the alarm. Johan Petiot, executive director of the French Retail Alliance, told French media that China relies on exports to fuel growth. If they can't sell to the U.S., they'll flood European markets, crushing French businesses. The European Commission is stepping up, planning a handling fee on packages from major e-commerce platforms entering the EU to fund tougher customs checks for illegal goods. Trump's unpredictable moves have deeply divided the CCP's internal factions. Beijing's anti-Xi forces have begun to act, and Xi Jinping's coup attempt has failed. Recently, amid numerous rumors, President Trump has once again made it clear he will not lift tariffs unless Beijing offers something substantial. When pressed by reporters, he clarified, "Opening up China would be great, a major win. Access to the Chinese market to sell our products." Echoing this stance, Scott Bessent clarified at the Institute of International Finance that President Trump had not unilaterally proposed lowering tariffs. Besant emphasized that China's reliance on exports to escape economic hardship harms not only itself but also the global economy. He stressed that China must change, a fact widely acknowledged. "We want to help it change," Besant said, "because we also need economic rebalancing." Crucially, Besant noted that China must shift from an export-driven economy to one driven by domestic demand, a transformation urgently needed globally. However, fostering domestic demand would require the Chinese Communist Party elite to share benefits with ordinary citizens and strengthen social welfare, a move fundamentally at odds with the CCP's resource control-based rule. Some observers interpreted Besant's remarks as a veiled call for China to reform not only its economy, but also its political system. Political commentator Jiang Senjie explained that Trump's earlier, more conciliatory comments were never directed at Xi Jinping. While some misinterpreted them as signs of weakness, Jiang argued they were a strategic gift to Xi's internal rivals. According to Jiang, Xi has no intention of compromising with the U.S. Trump's suggestion that tariffs could be lowered was meant to signal to anti-Xi factions within China that replacing Xi could ease U.S.-China trade tensions and aid China's economic recovery, thereby rallying support against him. Conversely, if Trump maintained a hardline stance, Xi could claim that Sino-U.S. relations were hopeless regardless of leadership, bolstering his own position. Signs of internal division within the CCP are mounting. Nikkei Asia reported on April 23 that during the China Development Forum in March, some senior CCP officials and retired central bank leaders privately expressed satisfaction with Trump's tariff war. They believed Xi's refusal to heed their advice had backfired, and U.S. pressure might finally force Beijing to implement internal reforms. Given the CCP's pervasive surveillance, the fact that officials dared to voice dissent suggests Xi's grip on power is weakening. In an even more explosive revelation, Sound of Hope TV cited Yao Cheng, a former PLA Navy aviation colonel, who claimed during an April 23 livestream that Central Military Commission Vice Chairman He Weidong was arrested for attempting a coup, a major blow to Xi's faction. Yao revealed that the Shandong faction, affiliated with Xi's wife Peng Liyuan, sought to protect Xi as the Zhejiang and Fujian factions collapsed. During the March 2 sessions, the Shandong faction held a gathering at Beijing's Anhui building, but the event was exposed when a participant suffered a stomach hemorrhage and was hospitalized, arousing the suspicion of CMC Vice Chairman Zhang Yuxia. An investigation subsequently uncovered evidence that He Weidong was plotting a military coup using the Eastern Theater Command. Yao explained that Zhang Yuxia would not have moved against He Weidong, a peer on the Central Military Commission, without solid evidence. Given his age, 67, and the likelihood of retirement if Xi stepped down, Zhang's decision underscores the gravity of the plot. He Weidong and Miao Hua, long Xi's trusted military aides, were closely aligned. With Miao Hua already purged, Xi's control over the military has weakened. Though he retained influence, he reportedly sought to rally Eastern Theater Commander Lin Xiangyang to confront Zhang Yuya. However, Yao noted, Xi Jinping's military reforms, which mixed factions within army groups, and his aggressive anti-corruption campaigns had alienated many generals. Upon hearing rumors of a coup, officers quickly reported it, leading to He Weidong's exposure. He was arrested immediately after the 2 sessions, and his current whereabouts remain unknown. Meanwhile, Peng Liyuan did not accompany Xi on his recent Southeast Asia visit, reportedly staying in China to manage the crisis. If Yao's account is confirmed, it would explain why Ho Qing, wife of former Singaporean Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong, recently shared an article sharply criticizing Xi as a mob boss. Ho Qing maintains close ties with CCP princelings such as Wang Qishan and Zhu Rongji, both of whom advocate for better relations with the U.S. and are considered opponents of Xi Jinping. Taken together, these developments suggest that a relatively pro-U.S. faction is rising within the CCP, gradually moving to replace Xi Jinping. Netflix CEO exposes the dark side of CCP censorship. Speech suppression accelerates the regime's downfall. On April 23, The Hollywood Reporter revealed that Netflix co-CEO Ted Sarandos, speaking at the Semaphore World Economy Summit, stated that Netflix remains largely unaffected by the U.S.'s 145% tariffs on China because it never entered the Chinese mainland market. Sarandos recalled that 15 years ago, Netflix attempted to enter China through a content licensing deal with IQIYI. But after 3 years, not a single episode passed CCP censorship, forcing Netflix to abandon the effort. According to Sarandos, this experience exposes the regime's iron-fisted grip on speech. The Hollywood Reporter noted that the deal with IQIYI required all content to be approved by Chinese authorities, but the CCP's extreme sensitivity to ideology made it impossible for any material promoting freedom of thought to survive. This censorship isn't limited to foreign media. Domestic productions are also subject to strict scrutiny. Content involving politics, history, or social issues is routinely blocked. In 2024, Radio Free Asia reported that over 70% of Chinese domestic film and television works were censored, with 40% of content modified or deleted. Meanwhile, the Great Firewall continues to isolate China, blocking thousands of foreign websites and cutting the public off from external information. The 145% tariff war has severely damaged the economy. In 2024, exports to the U.S. still accounted for 16% of China's total exports. A wave of small business closures has worsened unemployment, now reaching 18%. To conceal economic collapse and growing discontent, the CCP is tightening control over information to maintain a facade of stability. The CCP's censorship and the Great Firewall are driven by fear, not of cultural erosion, but of political crisis. At the heart of the regime's anxiety lies economic freefall, a real estate crash, 90 trillion yuan in local government debt, and sluggish consumer demand have sparked widespread unrest. Recent protests by farmers in Guizhou and the mass backlash following the Shanghai metro breakdown reveal public anger reaching a boiling point. The regime is relying on censorship to contain dissent. Sarandos' account confirms that the CCP's rejection of foreign content is not about defending values. It is about silencing free thought that could undermine its foundation of lies. These lies include claims of prosperity, harmony, and national greatness. If information were free, the truth about Xinjiang's human rights abuses, the Tiananmen Square massacre, the persecution of Falun Gong, state-sanctioned organ harvesting, and the COVID-19 cover-up would be exposed. On April 23rd, the Wall Street Journal reported that China's 2024 talent outflow has reached a 20-year high as intellectuals flee escalating speech suppression. The CCP's censorship machine is cutting off the country's own future. Sarandos' remarks lay bare the regime's fatal weakness. Once information flows freely, its lies cannot survive. Censorship and the Great Firewall are acts of desperation. Amid economic collapse, public outrage, and global isolation, the CCP is accelerating toward its own end. Netflix's withdrawal stands not only as a business decision, but as a silent protest and a warning: the end is near. Thank you for joining us at New Century. We believe facts matter, and so does your voice. Subscribe, share your thoughts, and let's keep the conversation going. Until then, stay thoughtful, stay well,